begin. So I am interviewing Amanda today because we are so proud of her. She is the first nurse that I know of that's met with a nurse leader, been invited into an organization, hosted an all-day retreat for the C-suite. It was super successful, and now they're moving into the process of an organizational contract for her to come in and work with leadership all the way down to the nurses to change the culture in an organization that's failing. And I know Amanda's gotten hit so many times with other nurses asking her questions. How do you do it? How do I do a proposal? What should my price be? And we just both thought this video, we'll record it, would be great for the successful nurse coach community, but also for Amanda's multiple people who reach out to her. Hopefully we can give them something to watch and they can get some gold, because we want this to happen all over the country. So
we
thank
need
you for
it to
being
happen
here.
all over the country.
Yeah, it's not even a want, it's a need.
Yes. Thank
Like
you for having me. I'm so excited.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we're like, yeah, no. It's not a want. It's like air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is right now. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to just introduce yourself and kind of share how you got here, your vision right from the beginning, and then what you're really hoping to do in the future?
Yeah. So I am a nurse. So I've been a nurse for 20 years. I've spent more than half my career in leadership. So my experience in leadership is what's brought me to where I am today. Having seen everything that's wrong in leadership, in nursing and in the hospital. I've worked all in hospital settings, and how we can improve the way we manage and care for staff so we can better care for the patients. So that's led me to, so I went through the collective a year ago, so graduated in last February. But before I started the collective, I had left a leadership position that was very toxic and knew there was something more. And so when I found the Nurse Coach Collective, I was like, this can put me direction behind what I had wanted to do. This gave me that footing to say, I know I can change healthcare. I know I can change the culture and the way that we manage in healthcare. And this gave me the avenue to do that. Yeah. So I started the collective with a very big dream in mind. My dream was to, within the first 3 years, get into executive coaching. And then within 5 years, move into like organizational development and culture, and then creating like a retreat center to have people come and we can coach your team over the next week into what it is that they're wanting. That was my plan. That kind of got blown out of the water when I finished the collective and started coaching with both you. And one of my very first clients was I invited into a nurse leader into just a coaching conversation. And within our first 2 conversations, she was like, you're amazing. And can you do this for my organization? So that took my 3 and 5 year plan and boiled it down to 3 months, basically, and set me on this path. So really where I am right now is creating a business that reaches healthcare organizations across the country. Is really my long-term or my big goal for culture development, organizational development from a nursing perspective. So there's lots of organizational coaches, there's lots of high performance coaches, executive coaches out there. It doesn't have the nursing component to it. And in nursing right now, that's what's suffering. They're teaching you how to lead in an organization, but not how to care for an organization. And so that's where I come in. My goal is to lead through relationally based coaching practice. So you can be a good leader, but you can also care for your staff at the same time and facilitate empowerment and cohesiveness within your team, that they then adopt ownership into their organization, into their role, into the nursing profession, so that the clients the patients are getting the end benefit of that, of healthy, healthy nurses who put themselves at the center of their care, so that when they care for their patients feel that, and they can see what a healthy example of life really is. It's kind of the end, like that's my end dream that would come out of that.
You just said something really cool. You just said that there's plenty of coaches that are teaching these leaders how to lead. And from that perspective, they are being taught how to behave in a way that benefits the organization, the back end. And what you're saying is that it's all wrong, that you think that for an organization to be healthy, that first they have to care and go forward down to their line staff. So there's like this flip in nursing, from a nursing perspective, where it's like back to the basics of like healthy relationships, make healthy groups, make healthy organizations, make healthy profits, healthy everything, better patient outcomes. And nobody else is really doing that or looking at it that way.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, really
hopeful.
what I want is to create, help organizations create the best place possible to work, where you feel it when you walk in the door, the way people talk, whether you're talking with a housekeeper or you're talking with a lab tech, a nurse, a doctor, it's the same sort of conversation, and it's building each other up. And it's in a way of valuing each individual as they are, much like we talk about in the collective of you're the expert of what you do. And I value that. Like we've lost that in healthcare. And so getting back to that.
And the concept of nobody's broken, no organization is broken, but they're lost. Right? Like you don't want to go in saying you're totally broken, I'm going to fix you. You're like, you're totally whole, but you're lost. Let's get you back to where you need to be in the right space. So we know a lot of nurses who are going to watch this are maybe in the collective or in a coaching program or have graduated and have private practice, but they secretly hope they can go and present to their leaders in their organization or an organization that they used to work with, because they know they can help, but they have like no idea how. So what advice would you have for nurses that may want to do what you just did for their organization?
So the very first thing that comes to mind that I want to say is go for it, go after it, go all in. Don't let what can at times seem enormous stop you, because it only takes one person to institute the beginning of change. So first off, just going after it, being vulnerable, willing to put yourself, your knowledge, and your experience out there, because that's what the organization needs. So even if you haven't worked up the chain of leadership, even if you haven't been a director, a CNO, a VP, whatever, you have lots of knowledge and experience behind you because you've worked it and you've seen what has been broken and what has gone well, but also what hasn't gone well. And that's what you're bringing to the table. So own that. Be willing to be uncomfortable in taking that stand to say we need to change, because it is uncomfortable. Because when you're talking to, depending on the departments you work in, some departments, especially as nurses, we take pride in our work ethic, or how many hours we put in, or how much we beat ourselves up. That's really what we pride ourselves in. And that's how we say how good of a nurse we've been. And so standing up against that and recognizing that that is not a healthy model to use, you'll catch some flack for that. So be willing to be uncomfortable and be vulnerable to experience, to let people know what it's done to you. I mean, I just got off the phone with a nurse leader who has been a manager for 20 some years and had to take an extended mental health break because it broke her.
Yeah.
We need to stop that. And we need to stand up for the health and welfare of all healthcare workers. So be willing to be the one to go first is my first advice. And then if we're going to talk about getting into like actually proposing this to your organization, you need to get really clear on your why. Why is it important to you? And why is it important to the organization? That's what's going to drive everything you do from that point. So knowing what the pain points are and how you can address them is something just to think about when you're beginning to process, like how would I talk to a leader about this? This is the kind of things you're going to be talking about. And then proposing it. The advice I have as far as proposing, because that's a lot of questions I get, is how do you come up with a proposal? How do you do this? There's a couple questions you have to ask yourself before you can do this. So are you creating a position for yourself? Or are you like within the organization, like you want to work in that organization? Or do you want to contract yourself to that organization? Those are going to be two drastically different paths in different ways of proposing. So understanding that first. And then again, connecting back to that why. What's your end goal, your end outcome that you most want to achieve by doing this process? Because that's what's going to go throughout your proposal. That's going to how you adopt your methodology, how you adopt what you're doing, and how you're going to address that. And then the other heart of the proposal is, how is this sustainable? I think that's one thing that we lose sight of, because we get so excited, like I've got this answer inside of me, I've got all of this knowledge, I can help you. But what happens if you go through all of this work and a month after you've done all this work, all the leaders leave? How does what you just did sustain? How can they carry on the work you just did? So making sure you're putting that part in your proposal, and thinking through that part.
That's
and then
so
my
much gold right there. Keep going. This is awesome.
So, and it doesn't have to be extravagant. Like it really can be, it can be really simple, but that's what they're going to ask you when you sit down to talk with them. Like, they want the value of what they're paying you for, but they don't want it to leave when you leave. So how do you continue with that? Lastly, it's just like we talk about, dream big and play full out. There is nothing you can't do if you set your mind to it. So leave no stone unturned when you're proposing. I proposed as a way of saying, this is an organization I would want to work for the rest of my career. When I walk in the doors, I feel it, I see it, I experience it. So I know my patients experience it. That could be wild and crazy, but that's what's sustaining your education and your coaching through the program or whatever it is that you're pitching to them. So go for it.
Yeah.
We need it. Healthcare needs it. So don't shy away from that. Go big.
I'm reflecting on everything you just said, and like we can take the macro of that, of what you just said, and then we can simplify it to the micro or the individual. And it's like the nurse coach who does this has to 1,000% believe in her or his ability to do this and not have any clue how. Because you won't exactly know how. It will not be until you're in there. So you have to believe in the vision without any, you have some idea, but until you're in there in each part, you don't know exactly how. You just have faith, I'm going to get there. And you have that belief. So that's required because the person across from you has to feel that you believe that you can deliver.
Yes.
And when you haven't done it yet, right, this is your first time through, you have to have faith that you will, even though you're not sure how. And it's not cocky, it's just a decision and belief that you will, anything you don't know will be given to you along the way. Right.
I'm glad you said that, because that's key. I kind of take that for granted, because I thought that as I began this process, and that's kind of how I've lived my life, really. I've always dreamed big, but behind it, I've put that I believe in it. So my wording in my contract, or my wording in my proposal, my wording in the contract for the speaking engagement that I did, and the proposal for that, all was from a place of, I can do this. And here's,
Yeah.
even though I've never done it before, and I didn't, not as like a false advertisement as I've done this 1,000 times before, but because I believe in what I'm doing. And I
Yeah.
believe that I can do what I say I'm going to do for you. So I put that wording in
Yeah.
any document I give to them.
And it's never crowded at the leading edge. So right now you're at the leading edge. So you don't
Mhm.
have 100 people that you can say, tell me everything that you did to get there. Like you're it, you're there, you're alone. Anybody who's at the leading edge has cultivated that ability and belief in the quantum field of what's possible, even though it's fuzzy on the exact strategy to get there, but you've always known from the beginning since I've met you, like it's possible, it's happening. I don't know how fast, but not like it might happen or it may not happen. You're like, oh, it's happening. I'm creating it right now with my words and my thoughts constantly. I'm just not sure how fast it's going to happen. And then for you, we didn't think it was going to happen in the first 3 weeks of working together, but it did.
Yeah, it did. It sure did.
But I think that happening that fast is because you've had the thought and the belief for years. This was not a new thought or belief. It just, right. So there was more behind that. I just want to add that in.
Yeah.
In this whole journey, which has been about 3 months now, right? Since you graduated, you had that first conversation with that nurse leader, you had the invite, you created the event, now you've done the proposal, you're waiting on the answer, 3 or 4 months, I think. What's been the hardest moment so far?
Really, it boils down to the first step. The first step of reaching out to a leader, and like that was my version of, like, that was me being vulnerable. Like, I'm believing I can help you. I've never had your position before. I've been a leader. I've been a CNO of a major hospital, but I can help you. I'll never forget sending her that message and how like, oh, and we'll see what she's gonna say. And then when she immediately responds back, yes, and I'm like, she said yes. Like, whoo, okay. So getting out of my own way, really.
Tell me more about that though. Tell me more about right before you sent it. Like, you're saying that was the hardest so far. What was hard about it? Was it the thoughts? Was it the feelings? Was it fear? Like what? Because I see so many nurse coaches that would never do that. And from where I perch, I'm like, why not? We have nothing to lose here.
That's my perspective now. It was not my perspective then.
Right.
The hardest part of it was the thoughts, feeling like an imposter. Like, this is my first step in going big and saying, because I'm a brand new coach and I'm saying I can help you. And the fear of rejection. Now I don't care if you reject me, but I was afraid of and not of them saying no, but of any, like if they were to say anything bad back, you know what I mean? Or talk, because it's leaders, even though I'm working, I messaged people from East Coast to West Coast, like all over, people talk. And so what are you like that's what was going through my head. What are you going to say about me after I send this to you and be like, who does she think she is? She can't do this. So I think that was the toughest part.
That's interesting.
So, I mean, there's been some hard parts since then.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't take that first step.
Yeah.
So that was definitely the hardest. I think the next hardest was sending my contract and proposal for the speaking engagement and proposing a price that I thought was unattainable and they didn't even blink an eye at.
Yeah.
And that set me up to when I did my $500,000 proposal almost. I didn't even think about it. I was like, I got this. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
So when I think back, that's probably the hardest moment of the journey.
Yes. Leap off the ledge, build your wings on the way down. But if you try to build the perfect plane or the perfect way to jump, it just doesn't work. You have to at some point have faith that you're going to figure it out. And then like in your case, then it's just rapid exponential opportunity because of that one action.
Mhm.
And preparation and skill and mindset. I mean, you have all of that, but that was that, okay, we're going to try this way. We're just going to go for it. So
Mhm.
what are you most proud of?
I think what I'm most proud of is just taking a stand for what I believe in, believing in what I'm doing so much so that I don't like my mindset today is not the mindset it was even when we started working 3 months ago. Like the confidence, and I've always been very timid about that, the confidence of like not being cocky, like you said earlier, but knowing I have something that you could use. Um, and that comes from leaning into the uncomfortableness, because as
Yeah.
you and I've shared, as I shared with you, leading into the speaking engagement was probably one of the darkest times I've had. Um, it's definitely my professional career. It got very uncomfortable because it was a huge undertaking, and I don't think I understood how big it was
We never do.
until now, because now anybody that I talk to is like, wait, what? You spoke for 8 hours? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, no, people do this for like an hour or two, not the whole day. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I hear over and over again. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, this is what you do. And so this is what I'm gonna do. And
Now
but
you're going to
that
charge
was,
2,000 an hour instead of for the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So using that to fuel me, like, so I took a stand for what I believed in, and then using all of the uncomfortableness and using that to fuel me instead of to destroy me.
Yeah.
There definitely was some points along the way where I feel like if I didn't have the mental toughness, the strategies, it would have broke me
Yeah.
and walked away from what was there. So I was proud that I was able to look at when it was so dark and I was struggling with, can I really do this? All I did was like step back and see what I tell my clients. I adopted that, lived out what I teach, and now it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it gave me what I needed.
Reminds me a lot of authors. I've coached a few authors, and like the 2 weeks prior to their launch, they're nauseous and they're physically ill, and there's like they have to be coached off the ledge because they just want to pull the book from the publisher,
Mm-hmm.
because once it's out there in the world, then you're just like naked on stage and anyone can throw anything at you and you feel like you could die if it doesn't land, if it's not perfect, you're going to die, and you're not, right? Like you're not going to, but battling those thoughts and the discomfort, which I watched in real time that you did. I've seen it with authors. I've had experiences recently like that. And I think it's worth noting is that when you encounter those feelings, they're normal, they're expected. And if you can create some strategies and support to welcome them and work through them, then you've got this and you'll be fine. And not to believe the stories, the brain's going to try to keep you comfortable and make up all sorts of stories of why you shouldn't do it, why you can't do it, why you're not the right person to do it. And having the mental fortitude to work through that and say, shut up, brain, we're doing this, get on board, or just shut up. Which is kind of what you
Yeah,
did.
that is what I did. I quieted it down. It was like, here's what we're gonna do. And I had some intentional strategies behind that, visions, affirmations, and working through that, to believe that. But it is just like you said, like once I stand in front of this group, I'm here for 8 hours and I can't run and hide. So how can I do this successfully? So practicing it over and over and over and over, and talking I am good. I am a good speaker. I am like all of the things that come with that.
Yes. And you
Are
prepared diligently, disciplined, repetitively. Your life had amazingly, and this is how the universe works, created space for you to do that, which was so fantastic. So you actually had space open up in your life so you could just run it on repeat and feel totally prepared. And then you knocked it out of the park and got a proposal out of it, which is what your goal was. And we have at the time of this airing, we don't, or airing of whatever you're watching this, we don't have an answer yet. But
Yes,
we
we don't.
also, I think we both want to like convey that that doesn't really matter because it's either going to be
It
a yes
doesn't.
or a no. But you've got 20, 30, 40 more of these that you'll do anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's a no because you've shown up and done everything you possibly can to present a client with a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I also have to say the other thing I'm proud of is I actually proposed just shy of a $500,000 contract. Like,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
said
think
that
I've
out loud.
fully let that sink in. I don't think that I have. I mean, there's been times where I'm like, did I just do that? Like, and I did it with confidence and with like, I didn't stumble over, and the price is $450,000. I just like, and this is what you're getting for $450,000, and it's an amazing deal that you're getting
Yeah,
for this. But when I think about it, that's pretty awesome.
that is pretty awesome. I love it. That's so fun. Since you manifest pretty quickly, like I would say, and I don't know if I want to say pretty quickly, but for you, just watching the way your brain works, you just don't entertain a whole lot of thought trains where this doesn't work out.
Mhm.
Have you always been like that? Or where did you cultivate that kind of mental fortitude? Honestly, like I just think that's something that makes you extraordinary.
To be honest, I've always been this way. Like, I've always, like, as you're asking me, I think back to being a little kid. And I think back to 6th grade when my teacher was like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, it's not a question. Like, why would you ask me this? My dreams changed since then. So I end up doing that. But the one thing people always say about me is if you dream it and you set a goal, you achieve it. Like, there has never been a goal you haven't achieved.
Yeah.
I get so passionate about what I'm doing that there's no space for it to not work.
Yeah.
So I don't entertain, obviously, doubts come up as you go through the process. Just like doubts came up when I was doing this speaking engagement, like, can I do this? Like, the doubts didn't come with proposing it. The doubts came with, now can I perform?
Mm-hmm.
Those are there. And I have a way of, like I said, process that I deal with those. But no, I've always just been, this is what I'm going to do and do everything in my power to make it happen.
That's incredible. But I want to also add that for people who could reflect back on their childhood and think that's the opposite of me, I've always thought it wasn't going to work out, like, or I have this story about my childhood, I've never been supported. And I cultivated it in my mid 30s and it seemingly out of thin air. And I remember it was just a decision or like a realization that if you believe in quantum physics, whatever we think or we believe will become reality. It can be no other way. It's not wishful thinking, it's just science. And I remember like deciding that that was my new truth and that anything outside of that didn't serve me. So if you find yourself watching this thinking, I don't have that kind of mindset, you can cultivate that. And
Absolutely.
a good coach will help you cultivate that and find that. And then from that place, then it really is like fun. You're like, what do I want to create next? What am I passionate about? I also want to acknowledge the roller coaster ride of deciding to take this path, because say tomorrow we find out you have a yes, you're going to be so excited. And then you're going to have the, oh my God, I have to do it.
Yes. I've already prepared for that part of it. They said yes, right? Now what do I do?
Then you do what you do and you prepare and then you work out and then you're flying in for the first time. And then on the plane, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do when I get there? But like, you've done it. So you kind of know what the roller coaster is that you signed up for, but you have the tools. You're like, yeah, I remember this part. This is totally normal. Oh, I remember the plane ride. I got this. So once you've leaned in the discomfort, you form muscles around, you just become acquainted with it.
You do.
You just become acquainted.
And it's not as scary.
No.
It's uncomfortable and you still get, whether it's the nausea or the like, sweaty palms, or you're just like the thoughts that still comes, but you're like, I got this. I've done this
Yeah.
before. Like I can,
Right. So
you
I
know
would
what you're doing.
say if people can do this once, whatever this is for them, even if it's just reaching out to their CNO and inviting them into a powerful conversation, which is really how this whole thing started, was by that one brave act.
Mhm,
That if you can
mhm,
do one brave act, then you can do a thousand brave acts.
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
and people come up against that, and that's when a lot of people back down, and they try to find these
mhm.
easier, softer ways around, like building
Yeah,
websites or
yeah.
it's like, no, like just try,
Just do the action. Just do it.
just jump. And it's like Mel Robbins 5-second rule. It's like just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, send the
Yeah.
message, send the email, make the introduction. And then what your story illustrates is what can happen and how quickly it can happen from that
Mhm.
one brave step.
And I think it's important to note that even at your first step, you don't have to have it all figured out. I think that's what our minds like. That's what makes us comfortable, is to have this detailed out plan on how you're going to do everything. And my experience is exactly the opposite. Like I invited her into a coaching conversation without even this on my mind. Like this was just, one, it wasn't my homework, and two, this is what we're going to do. And then each step I took, like I did not know. So when she was like, how much do you charge for this? Well, I don't know. Do you have a contract for this? Yeah, I have a contract for it. No, let me go build one and build one really fast and send it off. And then to send off a contract that's like looked at by a whole entire legal team and be like, oh, they accepted it. Okay. Like that's the messy action that happens. So you have time to figure it out. You just take the action, and then after you've taken the action, you learn most what you need to do next.
Yeah.
You don't have to have your next steps figured out yet.
And you were resourced. So as you were unsure, you had support with friends, family, with me. So you're not just out there on your own fumbling, figuring it all out. If you get to a certain point, you're like, I do not have the skill or the strategy or the experience to do this next step. You just use your resources, and somebody will help you fill in that tiny little gap. I always say, if you're going to hold an event, do not plan the event, pick the date. Pick the date, get people to say yes, or pick the date. And then you've given your mind 2 weeks to create it, as opposed to creating everything, having it all perfect, and then picking a date. It just doesn't work that way.
Or it never happens.
It never happens. Yeah.
Because it's never perfect enough or right enough.
So I know at this point you are willing to support, if nurses are at any stage of this, you're willing to support them in some capacity, and this is evolving for you every day. But if people, if this is what they want to do, if they literally have been asked, send us a proposal, and you guys have no idea how to do that, I think, Amanda, you're willing to help in some capacity. How can people reach you?
So you can reach me at Amanda at amanethwellness.com. That's my company, Amaneth Wellness.
Can you spell
that's
that?
probably the easiest. It's AMANETH.
amanethwellness.com. So Amanda at amanethwellness.com. I know people have asked me that. If you are watching this and this is something that is in the 3 to 6 year realm, and you're just getting started and wanting to do just one-on-one coaching, or just starting at the beginning, I'm happy to help you with that. And if I can't help you with that, I'm happy to refer you to somebody. I think what me and Amanda's, our missions are very similar in is that we just want to change healthcare and make it better. And it should be better, and it can be better. And the better version exists in the quantum field, and we're here for it.
It does. Taking a stand for it. Absolutely. And we need to
Awesome.
come
Thank
together.
you.
Like that's what I tell coaches. We all have to come together. There is no stepping on toes. There is no crossing over. Like this is going to take all of us joining together to create the change that needs to happen.
Yeah, I get the question all the time. Isn't it a saturated market? I'm like, oh, hell no. We need like hundreds of thousands of y'all who are educated in what coaching is, which is basically creating amazing relationships and results wherever you go from an empowered place. And so I always say there is room for you. this is not a competition. This is not a dog eats dog. This is like all boats rise. Like the tides,
Yes.
the more we have, the tide rises, and the better that it is. And with COVID and with the state of medicine right now, this is the time.
Oh, it's yes. That
This
is
is the time.
undeniably the truth.
So,
And organizations are seeking it too. So together we can create this change, but it's a movement. I look at it as a movement, and we all need to band together for this movement to take place.
oh, this is so much gold. Thank you so much, Amanda. And reach out to either of us if you have any questions. And if you're watching this video and it's in some type of forum, we'd love your feedback and questions as well, as each of you are on your journeys. So
yes, thank you so much for having me.
you're welcome.